Hi, this is Tyler Royke. You're listening to ABC Agent Broker Conversations. I'm here with my co-host Jimmy Doolin, and we're going to talk everything real estate, starting with this episode, and without a bias. So, Jimmy, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited about episode 1. This is a good day for us.
It is. And some of you all listening might have heard already episode 0. So just a little background on who you're listening to. But yeah, Jimmy, I mean, I'd say we can dive into it. Otherwise, I mean, we can have some fun. What do you want to talk about here to kick the show off?
Well, I think it's important. It's important for everyone listening to know that we are not here to compare. We're not interested in comparing A from B or B from C, et cetera, et cetera. We're just going to pick a topic week in and week out and discuss it from our vantage points, from our perspectives. If we think it's amazing, hey, we're going to be honest and say it's amazing. If we see holes in it or we're challenged by it, we'll talk about those challenges. But again, just two people's perspective. I've got 35 years in the brokerage business, previously owned 10 franchises, 250 agents, about $1 billion a year in sales. And I'm going to bring that experience and that perspective to the conversation.
And I've got 9 years as an agent, which apparently is about as much time as some big leaders in the industry have here. So nonetheless, yeah, we're going to give our perspective on things. So Jimmy, what are we talking about today?
Today's topic is Epic. A real estate company, newer to the industry, certainly a disruptor to the industry, and which I think actually we're probably going to hear the word disruptor. I don't know. I feel like every 6 to 8 months or so, we're going to have a disruptor in the industry, but that just seems to be our industry and where it is right now. So I went through, I think they started in 2026. So one of the things Tyler and I,
well,
we decided we're not going to.
Let's backtrack. I don't think it's 2026 yet. I think.
I'm sorry.
What year did you have there?
That is not what I meant. I think they started in 2022.
Yep, that's what I saw too. Yep.
Okay. So one of the things that we didn't tell people, Tyler, is that you and I do our own independent research, thoughts, come to the table, and the first time I'm hearing your opinion of something is right here with everybody else, and the first time you're hearing mine is right here with everybody else. So 2022, that's when they began. And did you get an agent count as of 2024?
Most recent agent count I got was 3,000 as of July this year. I saw that they had hit 500 late December 2023. So fast forward July, they hit 3,000. And they're approaching 4,000. That's the latest agent count I have, according to one of the co-founders. He says they're approaching 4,000. So I'm not really quite sure exactly how close they are to that at this time, but that's where we're at as of this recording.
Gotcha. So from a brokerage perspective, I found it really interesting, all of the various offerings that they've got out there. I'm fascinated by, I don't know how, you never know what's relevant to a person, but certainly, one person may find it valuable to have a tool like, for instance, they provide dog insurance or doggy care services. So you can have a pet sitter. They say free. Of course, I've never tried it, but they say free. And I find that fascinating because obviously for one person that has no pets, no value. For another person that has pets, valuable. But they just seem to be layering on many, many services. And from a brokerage perspective, I find it interesting, but I also find that these things could be very expensive.
Yeah, that's the one thing that initially stood out to me the most about them was just how many perks they have. And they very much lead with that. In fact, I actually initially looked into them a few months back because someone I'm personally connected with came on board and was very adamant about me looking at it. So I actually did look at it a few months ago initially. And if I remember correctly, what I saw then versus what I saw past day here, looking into it some more, I see more perks. They even add. I thought they had a lot at the time. Like I'm seeing even more that it seems they've added since then. So it just seems like they keep finding a way to stack on more and more and more and more. And that's something I did see with all the different perks is no added cost, no added cost. Just essentially instilling to the agents, hey, this is not going to cost you anything additional, which to that, I mean, exactly what you're saying. I mean, I have a degree in economics, and it looks like one of the co-founders does as well. But one of the things they really instill with you, on that path, you'll hear it from at least one of the professors, if not multiple, is there's no such thing as a free lunch. So all these things do come at a cost. It's just a question of who is paying the cost. And I'd kind of be interested in hearing more of your take on that as, someone with a background of operating brokerages. It's like the money does have to come from somewhere to provide everything. There's no such thing as just all this free value, right?
It's got to be certainly there is a cost. Everyone knows there's a cost. It's impossible to just give things for free in the business world. They've got to be leveraging agent count, their projected agent count. I mean, a couple thousand agents. Certainly, I believe they started in Texas, and so, which is interesting since that's where you're located, and I think that that's where the majority of their agent count is located, is in the state of Texas. They say that they're forcing partners to come in their platform under their terms, as opposed to the partners saying this is what our services cost. I don't know. It's interesting to me to see it done that way, and to see. I don't know what the success or failure looks like for that, but I do know that if everybody doesn't win in any business relationship, it doesn't work. There has to be value for the partner. There has to be value for the brokerage, and there has to be value for the agent. So it'll be fascinating to see where all of these. I mean, golly, the like you said, those value adds were just. I mean, they were everywhere. There was and lead with it, like you said. Absolutely, 100%. I watched a few videos, and what I never heard was anything about the brokerage, about the practice of real estate. I heard about all the value adds for practitioners, but I didn't hear about the actual industry and what you do in to make a living in real estate.
Yeah. And I felt like when I heard them saying, hey, we force these people we work with to do business on our terms, I felt, I was thinking, well, isn't that just another way of saying economies of scale? I mean, if you have a couple thousand agents that you bring as interested in the service, of course, you're going to get a better deal. That's how a lot of these things work. So maybe that's just their way of saying that, because I think as agents, we don't always hear about like, hey, how's a broker really able to offer these things? Like we'll hear about a tech platform that they're able to offer that typically costs a lot on the open market, but they're able to equip us. Well, is that because they're paying for that individual license, or is it because they're able to negotiate something to provide it for all the agents, right? So that's kind of how I interpreted that. Just I usually don't hear brokerages explaining it that way.
Yeah, I thought that the term that we forced them to go our direction or go with our terms was maybe not the best marketing approach or the best way to say it. But the other thing, from a brokerage perspective, let's face it, these guys, maybe they have revolutionized all of these add-ons. But what I see is that they're predominantly platforms that are available industry-wide. In other words, if in fact, like I'm looking at a sheet here that I received with all the various, healthcare, prescriptions, dental, vision, et cetera, they all seem to be platforms that you can subscribe to. And my suspicion is, although I haven't researched each and every one, my suspicion is they come with some sort of low subscription cost. And so I guess what I'm thinking here is if there's value in these, my guess is they'll filter through the industry. This won't stay. It's not a proprietary. It's not like they created something and they own it. They're renting space on platforms. So if there is value in these, and that'll be deemed by the agents, right? I mean, agents are going to determine if that brokerage is offering something of value or not. And if it is valuable, I think you'll see these spread across all platforms, whether it's bricks and mortar, cloud-based, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah, healthcare, like just a note on that. And I paid attention to like kind of the fine print. A lot of times people glance over because it's easy. And they'll tell you this is coming straight off of their website and straight off of the information they provide on this directly. But like healthcare, for instance, we hear that and we think, okay, yeah, our health needs and surprises are taken care of, right? Like that might be something that comes to mind if someone's considering that as a benefit. But if you look at the disclaimer that they put as they're describing the benefit, it says free healthcare is not insurance and it does not cover hospital stays, testing, or medical procedures. So it's important to understand what they're saying. Okay, there's some free prescriptions you can get. And, there's ability to talk to a doctor, but like, what are we saying it's actually covered? Because I think a lot of the things that people think of in a time of need, just full disclaimer, there's probably something else you're going to want to have in place to actually make sure you're taken care of in that situation.
Yeah. And by the way, you said something that I just want to say that I thought was fabulous. And that is their website. I mean, you want to talk about presenting a comprehensive presentation to agents. Obviously the site was designed to sell their value proposition to get agents to join. And I thought they did a really nice job. I thought their website presented a lot of information there. So let's move on to their commissions and their business model. Something like you said, small print. I'm going to get to one that I don't think most people are going to pay attention to. It said low 0.01% transaction fee.
Doesn't sound like much when you put it that way.
No, but that's 0.01% of the sales price, not of the commission. So when we talk about a commission being some percentage of a sales price, and then the transaction fee being a percentage of the commission price, that would be one thing. But when you talk about it being 0.1% of the sales price, this is in effect a reduction of your fee. So you charged X, whatever that may be, and you just had a tenth of a percent reduction in that cost. So on $1 million property, which is not uncommon anymore, that's a potentially $1,000 transaction fee. So
they do note that they cap it at 500 though. So
I saw that
per transaction. Yep.
For a total of 5,000, and then it reduces to a maximum of $250, I believe.
Yep.
So I just found that was interesting. I've not seen anyone have a transaction fee that was based on the sales price like that. I found that interesting. That could be costly on a $500 transaction fee on some sales prices could be pretty substantial.
Oh, of course. It's interesting. Yeah, that's the first time I recall that I've seen a variable. I've looked at a lot of brokerages, but yeah, that's a variable transaction fee. So correlates directly with the sales price because there's a lot of different example. Like usually you think of one of the or the other. You either have like a split or a transaction cost. Here you're seeing that you have a mix of both. And so definitely something important. I would say if I were seriously looking at this, I would want to run both my current production as well as my anticipated production through that to truly understand, okay, what's it going to cost me to operate here? Because, if you're kind of glancing over that, it's easy to miss. But I mean, yeah, if you're doing a decent amount of closings, I mean, 10 a year, that could be $5,000 right there, depending on your sales price. And if you're going to do a lot more, obviously you're going to pay more than that in transaction costs, on top of your capping production.
So from a brokerage perspective, I found it fascinating, the declining cap. I find it fascinating from a sustainability business model because there's another company. Well, I don't want to compare, but I've seen others do it, and you start to, when you've got one agent that pays you $15,000 in their cap and another agent that's paying you $10,000 in cap, you start to create more value with a $15,000 agent, right? I mean, if you're paying more than I'm paying, you're more valuable to the company. I wonder if I'm on a declining cap and I'm at the bottom, they say that they give out leads. Who will the leads go to? I mean, wouldn't they go to the people at the top who are paying the most so that they have the opportunity to earn company dollar? But I guess more importantly, from an agent perspective, did the declining cap do anything for you? I found it fascinating, but I wondered if it was attractive to you.
Yeah, I could see the appeal in that, that you have an opportunity, like it's basically a loyalty program. The more you stay with the brokerage, the less you pay into the brokerage over the course of time. But yeah, that's a big question I had, not to get off the, compensation model, but something that I did not find any details whatsoever on were things such as the leads, right? Like, so they are advertising, they are offering that, but I did not find any information that the company provided as to, just some of those fine details. Like, okay, well, to what extent do you actually get that? What determines, and same with several of the other perks, right? Like they make a big deal about, how they'll do billboards, but okay, well, how many of those do you get? What would qualify whether you got one or not? Can they do that for every single agent in the company? Not that I feel not that every single agent would ask, but there was no information as to, other than, hey, here's what we'll do. Okay, well, how does that actually work? How do you get that? How do you get the leads? Et cetera, just like what we're saying here. Because I like something I think about that I feel not enough agents really put a high level. I mean, there's definitely some thought that goes into it, but I think could really look at a whole lot more is, okay, regardless of what you pay into the brokerage, whether it's a $15,000 cap and it declines, or whatever it is, maybe it's something much higher than that in a different market, regardless, or lower, even, so-called 100%. What value do you get in exchange for what you're paying in? To me, that's the bigger question that I think could easily get overlooked when all you're seeing is, okay, the caps decline. This is great. I'm paying less. Okay, regardless, if you're at 15 or 10 on your 6 year here, what are you getting value wise, and how exactly does it work? Like, I want to know in a situation like that, okay, if I am expecting leads, how does that actually work? And to what extent can I expect that? And why would I get leads versus any of the other agents in the company who might be paying in more to the brokerage, or whatever the case might be?
So I saw something that said on an average right now, 150 leads per agent in a year. I think it was a year. And then the other piece is I think these are going to fall in like a RedX or one of these other services. They said they were predominantly for sale by owner leads, and they suggested that you hook them into the CRM platform that they provide and the AI tools, and nurture them over an extended period of time. So I believe it's a list of expireds and for sale by owners is the lead source.
So, I mean, yeah, that's another thing I was going to say is, like, well, what qualifies as a lead? Because, I mean, if you have a name and phone number, that could be a lead, but I mean, is it someone that's actually expressed interest, or is it just data that you're scraping and skip tracing? I know they mentioned they do that, which is great, but if that's a lead, I mean, I could tell you how much I could do that from, on my own, and it's not that much money to do that. And that's something I saw consistently. If I want to generate 150 leads with the best phone numbers, I'm just talking about finding the data, skip tracing it. Which, funny enough, if someone hasn't been in the business a long time, they might not know how to do that, and that might be a high perceived value to them. But for me, it's not a very high perceived value because I know I could do that for a very minimal cost. I mean, if we're talking for sale by owner leads, I could generate 150 of those for myself with their correct phone number for no added cost in the whole year. But funny enough, there's agents that pay for services because they don't know where to look to find it. I'm not saying, I mean, a lot of people listening, that might sound like, what do you mean you don't know where to find those? Well, there's agents that are a year or two in the business. No one's ever really shown them how to do this. So, for me, that's like maybe $100 worth of value. But on the other hand, if they were like leads that you paid a high cost per lead from, a provider that does that, just like paid lead generation, like that's a different level of value. So
isn't the whole notion of leading with the word free, isn't that kind of a misnomer too? Because it's built in, it's baked into the cost of your association with that brand.
Of
right?
course.
I mean,
yeah.
Dollars go in, and then the company spends dollars where they think it's appropriate to create the most value to attract agents so that they can flourish. So I think saying free is maybe wrong because you are paying for them. You're paying for that, and as a result of that, you're not getting something else. So, I mean, everything's a trade-off. So I don't know, the whole notion of free was, I wasn't really too crazy about. I get it from a marketing perspective. And like we talked about with the leads, you could go on to Zillow and get all the for sale by owner leads, but the perception of them giving them to you, I guess, does it matter if it's valuable, or is it what really matters is that they created the perceived value? And from an attraction perspective, does it do what they want it to do? And I don't know. I mean, I think 3,000 is a legitimate brokerage, right? I mean, 3,000 agents it's not obviously not huge, but it is a legitimate brokerage. So,
and what do you make of the growth rate? I mean, they are at 3,000, but how quickly they've gotten there is almost unprecedented, if not unprecedented. I mean, you don't really hear of companies going from, I believe a year ago, they had 200 or 300 or so, and now they have 3,000 plus, so that you're talking about tenfold growth from a few hundred to a few thousand. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, I would say this, if they've made it to 3,000, I think the big milestone in any national brokerage is 20,000 agents. That's the number when the industry sees you as a legitimate contender. So 3,000 agents, with the vast majority of them being based out of Texas. I don't know what percentage, but I know it's north of 50%.
I saw their according to their website, if I'm not mistaken, they're in 31 states, and they notated that when they were going to be launching the remainder of the states, and by May, they're planning by May 2025 to have all 50 states open within the brand.
And speaking of forward, let's talk about the going public. When I had my faux pas earlier with the dates, that's what I was actually referring to.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's what on the website, it shows here that they intend to go public on the stock market in 2026. I found that interesting. I don't know that I've seen another brokerage model predict when they go public and begin promoting it. So they're giving away stock in their current model with the idea that it's going to have some value at some point in time, but before it's even public. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the stock market. That's not been my forte. Real estate's always been my focus, but I've not heard of anyone predicting when they're going to go public and begin giving out shares based on that prediction.
Yeah, they said assuming favorable market conditions. So, basically that's their best guess. And there's a lot that has to come together. It's a process, and there's a very high standard with the accounting and what's required on that side of things as well. But from my perspective as an agent, and I'm actually knowledgeable in the stock market. I feel like most agents aren't, and so this is something I think about when I hear that. But it's and again, this is straight off their website. The valuation is not publicly known. So, okay, they're giving you stock, and they say they'll give you, up to, they have a power award, for their top producing agents, in which you can earn up to $15,000 in stock. But if the value is not publicly known, and I mean, they have a way that they, assess that, internally, and we'll share that, but it's not based on the public market and what. It's not the equivalent of a publicly traded company. We're talking about two completely different things in terms of the value of your equity. And I think part of what people should be careful about is a lot of times when a company's in an early phase of growth like this, it's like the vision of what they're doing that they'll sell you on. Like, that's a lot of people won't perceive what I'm saying as a negative. They'll perceive that as a positive. Like, hey, I'm getting in on the ground floor. The stock's not public yet. I can get these shares before they're public. But I would play devil's advocate on that, which is, okay, well, what are you actually getting ownership in, and what's that worth? And like, at least until it's public, how do you actually liquidate that? And typically, there's not really a clear-cut path, if any path, in that sense. So again, I think a lot of people mistakenly, and I say mistakenly because, unless you're really knowledgeable about what it is you're getting into from the ownership stance, they're kind of just buying into the hype and the idea that one day that will be worth a lot more when it is publicly traded, when that's not a guarantee by any means. And
because that's a big accomplishment, taking a company public, right? I mean, that's not this isn't a high percentage thing that it's not like kicking a field goal where you feel like you got an 80% chance of that ball going through the field goal. This is, I don't know what percentage of companies set out to do this actually successfully do it, but I don't believe it's the vast majority are successful.
Yeah. And so my point being is, hey, despite any value from that, there's a risk until it happens. There's a very high risk because, no one really knows for sure one way or another what's going to happen. If the milestone's achieved, what are the shares worth based on, where you got them at. And for me, just, I don't see transparency as an agent, even though there is some value they're expressing that they give and they're sharing it back with the agents. I see a different level of value when I have a crystal clear ability to see, okay, what are these shares actually worth? What am I actually getting? And, the best way to do that is on the public market, which, that's great that they have that as a goal, but just, between now and then, I don't really have a clear idea of what that would actually mean one way or another for me as an agent, even if I was getting the Power Broker Award. To me, there's just not as high of a level of transparency as, post being available on the public market.
So I'm looking at daily training, advanced topics. We don't just cover basics. Our experts will help you at any stage of your career to help you take your business to the next level. They don't ever go into explaining who the experts are. So this seems to be somewhat of a theme, is big splashes, not a lot of content or context behind it to support it. Did you see anything on who the experts are?
The only explanation I found, actually, it was related to the mentorship. They explained that a mentorship would be from the area leader. So it sounds like there's a specific person who's an area leader who's responsible for mentorship in that area. And training, I wasn't really clear on that either. All I could find was daily live trainings are available, and they record them, so effectively they're available on demand as well. That also they had a way to facilitate training packages from several industry leaders at no additional charge. Again, not really clear on who the industry leaders are or what exactly that means. Are we talking about partnering with outside, people that just train for a living or coach for a living, and they're kind of partnering with the company. I don't know. To me, that sounded like that might be what that meant. But what the biggest thing that I think of in terms of the training being that, as they would express, it's a very agent centric. And actually, this is something I watched their brief introduction video, and something that I haven't quite heard before was just how many things they were saying they were the first at it, like tied together. It was, and I don't think they meant that, hey, we're the first company this, but I think they meant, hey, if you tie all this together, this is what they're the first at. And they said the first agent owned, agent operated, agent founded, agent centric, tech driven brokerage ever. They said that all like together
over and over and over.
Wow, that's like a lot of like, okay, basically we're baking a completely different cake here because we're the first cake with all these ingredients combined. But, a lot of those things, if you say it individually, I mean, they're not the first. I mean, maybe if you tie all those ingredients together, but that was just something I wasn't really clear on. So I guess what I was getting at too with that is, even though very agent-centric brokerage and how they express that it's set up to really be centered around the agent, something that I don't understand. Okay, what's the incentive? Like if you want to pull information from the agents that are thriving the most in this environment, what's the incentive for them to actually share and contribute and give back to the other agents? I think you could say another piece of the compensation model, just by the structure of sharing in revenue, which we could talk more on that might be it, but I couldn't really see anything beyond that as to like, okay, if you're a top producer here, why would you want to share and train and whatnot?
I also I saw a interview with the founder, and it talked about him. I think he went to Harvard.
It said I think 2004 Harvard graduate.
Yep. Okay, and
I believe graduated. I think he had an economics degree.
That's exactly what I saw. What I didn't see, he said he was self-taught in social media, self-taught in graphic design, self-taught in building apps, et cetera, et cetera. What I didn't see was his, and I don't know, so this is more of a question, industry experience. Was he in the industry? Was he a part of real estate, not a part of real estate?
So what I could find about that is it appears he's been licensed about 10 years as a licensed real estate agent. So about 10 years as of this recording. So talking around 2014 or so, maybe 2015. So about 10 years. And he was the only previous brokerage information I could find on him, which I might be missing something, but I know between December 2016 and 2021, he was with eXp Realty. So I'm not sure if there was a previous brokerage there or not, or if eXp was the first brokerage he was a part of. But that's all I could find on the license holder experience. And I couldn't really figure out on what level he was in production himself. If I go back, I could see on one of his online profiles some previous sales going back to around that 2016 or so time frame. I think I saw on I went back pretty far on one of his social media pages, and I think I saw some sell posts going into the 2020 or so area. But just based on what I'm seeing, I don't get a sense that he was a very high level producer. It seems like he was a solid producing real estate agent, but I don't know that. Like, I don't get the sense that he was a top producer or anything of that nature, or top team leader. It seemed like he was just a solid producing agent himself, like doing, again, and I can't even tell how many deals a year. I don't know if he was doing 10, 15, 20 deals a year, somewhere in that range, but that's kind of the sense that I got as far as his experience with the license. Something else I did find on his history that I took notice of, is probably the best way to say it, and this was actually off of one of his online profiles where I found this information, but he actually, I saw in his bio, he says he's a serial entrepreneur or something of that nature. So what other businesses has he been involved in? Interesting enough, there's a couple companies previously that share the same name as this brokerage. Going back years previously, one was called Epic Massage and a different one called Epic Lash Spa. I pulled up I did a Google search, and I did not see the best reviews on either of those companies. And I actually did find that he responded. So as the owner, so I'm kind of tying this all together. It appears that he owned, being a serial entrepreneur. What's that mean? Well, at least a couple of these businesses. One was a massage place. One was a lash spa place. Not the best client reviews. Like I'm talking, one had like 2.5 out of 5 stars on Yelp, I believe. And then the other one, I think it was a little bit higher, somewhere in the 3s, but there were a lot of reviews that weren't so nice, you could say. And something I consistently saw was the customer service. That's where the reviews were saying, the people that were unhappy, they were expressing they weren't happy with the customer service. That was a theme I saw over and over again. So just interesting fact I'm sharing. I'm really not trying to beat them up, but that's just something interesting I saw, that literally they had the same name going back years now, and that there weren't stellar raving reviews all around about it.
Well, that's a fascinating one. I did not see that. So Epic Massage and Epic what?
Lash Spa, which it appears they're no longer open for business, but I'm just pulling up their profiles online where you can see what people are saying about them.
Wow, that's that one I find rather fascinating. So, what parts of this were you, as an agent, were you enamored with?
Just in general.
Yeah, like what like when you went through this, what did you think? Oh, wow, that's pretty amazing. I like that. Or
yeah, I'll get to that actually real quick while we're talking about the founders. It's so 3 co-founders, as I found. So you have Joshua Miller. He's the one that had the ties to the previous companies called Epic. And then Christopher Miller and Janice Delcid. I don't know if I'm saying her name correct or not. All Texas based, out of the Houston area, it appears, or somewhere thereabouts. So something I don't really know what to make of this one way or another. Joshua, you go back, you see a lot of social media history. You can go years back, and he's got a presence there. I couldn't find any history, like no online presence from Christopher. And also Janice. If you go back, you can't really find much about them previous to their association with Epic as co-founders. So again, I don't know what to make of that. I just, you can't really go back over the course of time and really see much. Like I literally couldn't find any history on Christopher. But what I did find, if what I'm seeing is correct, which he kind of has a common name. I'm pretty sure I found the correct one on Trek. I kind of looked their licenses up. If I'm looking at the correct person, which I believe I am, it appears he was licensed in 2021 and let it expire. So just interesting note there. I saw that Joshua, his license is currently in active status. Not that that's the most important thing if you're the leader. It's not like you're active in production or anything. And maybe you have a different perspective on that. I'd love to hear if you do. And then Janice, it looks like she was licensed late 2020. Prior to that, all I could find was at one point she worked at Wells Fargo as a service manager back in 2013. And as late as 2019, even going into 2020, she had a financial services or tax preparation business that she had described it. And so something I see across the founders here or something. And again, like, I really don't know what percentage of agents are actually looking into this, because I'm just someone, like, I think about a lot more things as a leader, because I'm a leader of agents now, not just someone who produces. But like, one of my biggest questions if I'm looking at an opportunity is, who are the people behind it? And something that I see from these co-founders is, or something that concerns me, is a lack of experience related to what it is we're doing here today, which is leading a real estate brokerage. And so that's something I think Joshua, out of the three, appears to have the most experience. But again, what's the experience leading a company and building a business, especially at this scale? And I don't see anything related to the history or background of the three of them that really pertains to what they're doing here. And it's not to say that they can't gain the experience along the way, but that's just something where, if I'm looking at other examples out there, I feel like there's different situations where the people kind of at the helm bring a lot more experience and wisdom to the table based on what they've actually done up to this point, not just what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I tend to agree. There is a lot on the surface. I don't know, when you peel back the onion, what you're going to find, but there is a lot on the surface that certainly could appear to be very intriguing and exciting for someone. Understanding what all of it really means is a longer, deeper dive than what you and I certainly have.
But back to your question, and if there's anything I just shared that you wanted to dive more into, please do so. But you asked me kind of what really appealed the most. Their marketing is phenomenal. It might sound like I haven't said anything super like, hey, they're great at this, but no, they're great at marketing. They like their messaging. I totally get why it's appealing to agents. Their branding is phenomenal. Just very visually appealing. I don't know what it is, but it seems like very few companies in the space really nail down that. If there's anything I'd say that they've just completely nailed down, it's their branding. Everything from their billboards to their signage. I've seen some of their signage in yards. They do a very good job with that. It's visually appealing. I think they've got something with their brand that sticks. They got a theme around the power agent. I see they have like a power button in their logo.
So let me get on that. When you talk about their branding, I agree. I think that their branding, like I said, their website earlier, all the messaging, all the branding type of things is really strong. But something on the branding that I do think they're kind of bucking the trend, if you will. And the trend is, agents have built their own individual brands or identities. They're stripping that from the agent in this particular model. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I do know it's not consistent with the industry trend. Agents, so you're gonna use their sign. You're not going to use your sign, and your sign with them is going to have your name and phone number. It's not going to have your logo. It's not going to have pictures. Now, you can do things on riders, but their sign is limited. And I think that that's an interesting direction for a brokerage in 2024 to be going, because I think what you see is most people have built their own team logos, their own individual logos and identities, and they want to maintain that.
Yep. I'm glad you pointed that out, because it's interesting too how they I guess pitch or market that. Because, like, for instance, I pulled this off of what they were saying about the billboards. They say that we aren't advertising Epic. We are advertising you and your listing. Each billboard will be customized to have your image and contact information. So it's kind of like they're intertwining the two. They're like, everything is branded, branding the company very much so, but they're saying, hey, well, this is for you as the agent. We're putting you in the center of this. What's your take on that? Because it's, I agree with what you're saying, but it's just interesting how they're positioning and pitching it.
I don't see it as the agent. I don't see it as agent centric at all from a brokerage perspective. This is solely designed to promote the Epic name and not the individual agent. I from a business model perspective, I think this is all about building a national, attempting to build a national brand. I think we said they're in 30 states right now with the goal of getting to all 50. So this is a company brand. That's the primary focus here, not the individual agents. And I don't think that will, I think that will, so far what I see is that one being a big hurdle for them to overcome, because agents want their identity, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not here to debate what's the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. I'm just saying that agents want their identity, and stripping their identity, I think, is it's vanilla. And if it's not the agent's identity, then it's got to be somebody's. And in this case, it is the brand's identity. It is not the agent. And that broker focused is I don't know. I don't like that part.
Yeah, and that kind of ties into, I think, a theme I see across just about their entire offering. And like the way I kind of see it is like it's like an easy button for agents. Like, because I mean, if you want to build your own strong personal brand, you're going to need the right platform to do that within. On the other hand, if you don't even know where to start building a brand, something like this might sound super appealing. Hey, we're going to take your face and we're going to put it on our stuff. At least give you an opportunity to do that at some point. And so that kind of ties into like, hey, what speaks the most to me about what they offer as an agent? Branding, I mentioned, lots of perks, and really, as I would frame it, the easy button for agents, because like a lot of the perks they offer, it's not that like, and I could pick almost any example. I mean, car washes, or like social media. Like, and I know what they're talking about when they say that. They're talking about like, hey, they're going to put a little bit of ad spin behind your new listing, right? Like, but you could take headshots. You could take any of these examples. None of these examples are a very costly thing if you're having to cover the costs on your own. But for whatever reason, I think a lot of real estate agents aren't really coming from the mindset of a business owner. They're coming from the mindset of like getting away from the employee path, building something more of their own. So like, to me, this is something that would probably appeal from someone that's not as much of a business owner minded person, where, hey, I want to have a company that just gives me the easy button to get these things I know I need to get done, not have to worry about, hey, who do I contact for this? What do I pay for this? Like, no, these are just, it's all there. And that's really how I perceive the value. Someone who really wants that easy button for as many solutions as possible. So the branding and the branding helps find people who want that. So it kind of works hand in hand. And I mean, the only other thing that I would say really stands out to me is the momentum behind them, because, I don't really care who you are. I think there's something of intrigue and interest if you know that a company just keeps growing and growing and growing, and you see that very abundantly in front of you. There's kind of some mystique around it, some hype around it, and like momentum's a very positive thing for a company to have going for it. So if you're on a track where you've gone from a few hundred agents to 2,000-3,000 and still growing, it's like, that's a wind at your sail. However long that lasts, that's something that's going to help get on more people's radar, and just, if nothing else, cause people to at least look at it and try to understand, okay, what is it about this that everyone seems to be flocking to it? For me, those are really the three things that stood out to me about it. On the flip side, I can, probably before we hop off the show here, I'll share some of my biggest concerns, if not questions, that I'm still unclear about. But, to me, those are the top three that really speak to me as an agent.
Well, I would say this. Clearly, the cloud-based brokerage model, now has a new player in there, right? There's three major players out there. And they, so, add this to the list of EXP and Real, and there are three out there. They're all at three different stages, but clearly cloud-based, it's working, and it's drawing attention. And this is just another example of it drawing attention. I support what you said, man. From a marketing perspective, it's they've done a great job. From a offering perspective, they've at least presented a phenomenal offering. Diving deeper into it, I don't know what it adds up to be in terms of real true value. And they've got some creative things, but I definitely think there's things to watch out for. I certainly, this will go public in 2026. That one makes me apprehensive. Picking the date now and telling people that this is going to happen, and these awards and these gifts are going to turn out to be valuable to you. That seems like a possibility for real disappointment. So I'll let you have closing words, and then I'll wrap up the show.
Yeah. So, I mean, a new contender in the cloud-based space. I mean, to be clear, they have quite a lot of ground they still have yet to cover. I would say to even really be in the conversation with the first two there, because I mean, you mentioned the threshold 20,000 agents. I believe that's thereabouts where Real is more or less right now.
Yep.
EXP is over 4 times bigger than that on the agent count front, 85,000+. So, I mean, 3,000, I wouldn't really call it a contender yet, but it's definitely something on the radar, if nothing else. And I think there actually is a fourth company, that could be thrown in that as well, as far as, the momentum they're having, a few thousand agents as well, cloud-based. So there are contenders in the space, which, I mean, I think generally for agents, this is going to be a positive thing. If you have different companies that are more centered around the agent, less centered around the corporation as a whole, that's a new model where they're sharing back, at least a hope of ownership in this case. And I get it. You probably can look in the back office and see you got awarded something. But again, until you have a liquid market for that, what's that actually worth, practically speaking? I mean, if you can't sell it or if there's not a market for it, I mean, you got to get to a point where you can for that to be a big difference maker. But in general, hey, more perks, more financial opportunity for the agent. We didn't really dive into their revenue sharing plan, but they do have one. It seemed like the concept they had around that, or the point of differentiation, was that they wanted to simplify it. So that's why it was kind of the same payout across the different levels there, and just a couple elements of it that they instilled, that they're simplifying and just making it easier to understand what you're going to get and what have you. Is it the most lucrative plan out there? I would say not, but it is an opportunity for agents to share in the upside and value, for actually contributing. And maybe that's part of why, if you are a top producer or leader, maybe that's part of why you do share something, because they made it clear with the we didn't really dive into the Power Broker award, but they made it clear that it was a strictly production related award. It wasn't based on any requirement to share back or contribute to the culture and community, which I thought was interesting. But and that just, again, made me think, okay, because like for me, practically speaking, as an agent, like there's really two things, and just a lot of agents I think would relate to this. It's like, okay, training wise and support wise. I mean, if you're not newer to the business, or I mean, you're kind of comfortable with the production you're doing, or maybe you want to grow that a little bit, but regardless, training wise, it may or may not be a big sticking point. For a lot of people, it will be, but then support. And that's the other thing we didn't really dive into already, was support wise. What's that actually look like? And I'm not like, I saw notes about AI, they mentioned some of the things they utilize AI for. I thought it was interesting that one of those things was, I mean, they did relate some of it to how you would actually get support. And they also related some of it to how you would actually get input on legal questions, which I thought was interesting. I mean, I don't know personally that AI is dialed in to as full of an extent. And I'm by no means a legal expert here, but I don't know, like just based on other things I've used it for, I don't know that it would be dialed in enough to really be able to fully lean on it for something like that. But just, I'm kind of getting a sense that, hey, we're leveraging some AI to give you some of the help and support you need, which is kind of interesting, because I don't know that I've really seen that, from others expressing that before. And it just makes me wonder, okay, what does the actual help and support look like when you need, when you want that human element, when you want, because even with mentorship, it noted, hey, when they're available, when they're, that's when you'll get it. Well, what does that even mean? Like, is someone even going to be available same day, if not next day? Because I know from experiences I've heard from agents all around the industry that in terms of mentorship, like, it's easy to say one thing, but especially if the details are ambiguous and it's not really clear one way or another what it actually looks like, it's just so easy for that to kind of be, hey, anything goes here. Well, yeah, you have a mentor, but it's really whenever they're actually available. They might not be available here the next day or two or what have you. And the same goes with the support. I just really wonder, what does that actually look like for the agents, especially for a company that is growing at the pace? I mean, can you, like, another thing I feel like that can easily get missed from people looking at this is, okay, if a company goes from a few hundred agents to a few thousand over the course of less than a year, a few months at that, you
Growing
cannot possibly have the staff to agent ratio in place to support. Like, you can't go from a few hundred to a few thousand people and have the correct staff ratio to actually provide a high level of support. It's impossible, because you could not, it would be irresponsible if you were to hire for those positions expecting to go from a few hundred to a few thousand agents that quickly. So there is no way, and I didn't even think of this, but just as we're talking, there is no way that they could have the appropriate employee to staff rate or the agent to staff ratio to properly support the agents. Like, a company cannot grow like that and have that in place. So I would imagine, and maybe some have a better experience than others, but there's probably some agents that are hurting to actually get the help they need. And probably those that are hurting the least are those that rarely, if ever, need help and wouldn't really even be seeking it out.
Well, there's definitely going to be lovers and haters, right? Of every brand, of every tool, of every product, etc. So I think what I'd love to do is encourage, if you're a lover of Epic, get on here and give us some comments. Let us know what you love about it. Let us know what your experience has been like. If you're a hater, you've been there and you left, or you've looked deep into it, why you didn't go, etc. Give us some comments. We're a neutral party. We're just here to bring the conversation to everybody. So I want people to share.
Absolutely, we want to hear your feedback, yeah, definitely either way you stand on that. And then, like, kind of my last thoughts, and then I'll let you kind of share yours, Jimmy, is like, my biggest 3 questions or concerns, depending. I mean, I'd say question, because I'd really like some more insight on this, before making a definitive conclusion. But just based on everything I researched, it's very much a question and a concern that I have for them, or really anyone that decides to run with them, is, for one, is this a solid foundation to build your business upon? To me, that's a mystery. I don't feel confident that it is, but I also can't say definitively that it isn't, because we have a 2-year track record. This company's existed 2 years. It's had a lot of growth in that 2 years, but is this going to be a place that you can keep building on years into the future? I don't know for sure one way or another on that. And that just kind of based around the business model. Is it going to be able to work and grow at scale with the given offering and financial, the compensation model? Can that grow at scale? Because you're talking about what your cap would look like 4, 5, 6 years into it. This company hasn't existed that long. They haven't had an agent base that's been on that plan. So are they prepared when they have a significant amount of agents that are paying this reduced cap to actually, like, has that really been modeled out financially to where they know for sure it's going to work? And that's something that I would really wonder about if I'm an agent wanting to build something, not just this year, next year, but like for the future, for my business to be on fertile ground to grow on. 2 is, and I think that's especially important when part of your value proposition is the idea that you have the ability to create an income that can be aired. So I think that's a very valid question and thing that people should consider if that's even a part of the equation for them personally. But two, leadership and background experience. Given the information I have on the co-founders, I don't have, I can't point to anything in their background that gives me an idea that they have a strong level of leadership experience in general, especially as it relates to being in real estate, especially being that two of the three co-founders have been licensed less than 5 years, as it appears. So just, I don't know what from their background, if anything, beyond what they're currently doing, really speaks to having a high level of confidence for me as the person at the helm of the ship here. And then third, their staying power, kind of related to what I already said, but their financial ability to really withstand with the current offering and numbers. Because I think that something we've seen, throughout the course of time in our industry, you've probably seen it more than I have, but there's companies that have one thing at one point, and then they have to make changes as they grow in order to actually stay afloat. And we even see this from some of the biggest, most established companies in the industry today, on how they have to kind of pivot and reposition as market conditions change and as and whatnot. So like what might be a sticking point now, what's that look like if it changes in the future? And to me, that's just, I don't really feel like what I'm looking at today, would necessarily be the same thing over the course of time. But anyway, that's kind of my take as an agent here. And again, probably one that, some people might think of it as overthinking, but for me, like, hey, if I am going to position myself, like I really think about not just today, but the future. I don't want to just have a good year or two. I want to have something that, I can look to in 10 years and have even beyond and know that I've built at the right place. That's what I personally look at.
So from my perspective as a broker, if I've built a brand, built a company, built a team, et cetera, I want to know that I can continue that legacy and that brand doesn't go away, because that brand is the very thing that I've used to create revenue, whether it's from agent attraction or it's from sales. So I would dig deep into what is the use and what is your ability to use that brand. There's no doubt the yard sign is one of the most powerful tools that a realtor has at their disposal. And if we're going to extract your ability from using that yard sign to further your company brand, that's a challenge. So I would definitely look into that. Also, I think that as I'm looking at, and anytime, if I was buying a franchise, a real estate franchise, and in this case, this isn't buying a franchise, but if I'm going to join a platform and then utilize that platform, I need to dig deeper into that platform. So if I'm going to go out and I'm going to promote free healthcare, I darn well better understand what free healthcare is. Like you said, it says right on their website, it's free healthcare, but what it turns out is that it's a free virtual platform to log into. So understand each and every one of those. Don't just look at the word free and say to yourself, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Look at everything I get. Find out the ones that are important to you and dig into them and get a full understanding of them. Not only that, not only the value, but what is the value of it in a monetary standpoint? Are you getting a $300 product annual expense, or is this a $50 a month product? What is this product and what does it actually do for you? Before you move your reputation, before you move your business to it, get a better understanding of it, because this is still in a very vulnerable stage, right? 3,000 agents, we've said it's certainly a great start. We don't know what the future looks like for it. We have no idea of what they will or won't do, but we know that there's a lot of zigging and zagging for this platform to succeed from 3,000 plus agents. So again, our unbiased just review, trying to stick with the facts. And we plan on doing this every week, folks. So we invite you to come back to this conversation. This is episode 1. We expect to every week, once a week, to do this same thing. We're going to broadcast these podcasts back out on Mondays. So we look forward to hearing you. If you are a lover or a hater, get on here and give us some feedback. If you've been inquiring, you've been looking into it, you're not really sure, give us some feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this particular tool. We certainly didn't cover it all. My belief is we'll probably be back to parts of this. Maybe next time what we need to do is tackle a single piece as opposed to the whole thing. So maybe lessons learned for us as we get started. But again, every week, please come back for the conversation. For ABC's Agent Broker Conversations, Jimmy and Tyler here. Take care. Have a great week.